Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma Teacher 1 here, back in today to talk about Navigatoria, chapter number 22. This chapter is titled Navi's Shackles. And that is a very good chapter title for this chapter, as this chapter is all about Manabu going to visit Navi, who is at her current residence, and pretty much the shackles that she feels around her from all the other Class A students and the things that they've sort of done to her in a certain way. And this is honestly a really fun chapter of Navigatoria, because there's no, big action plot points. It's not like the whole thing of, oh no, here's the space beast who's now eaten off Aiden's arm, or any of this crazy stuff going on. Really, this chapter just relies on Manabu's relationship to Navi and how the two of them get along, till suddenly cutting to a new conflict going on in the school, which is very interesting to say the least. And this chapter is really one of my favorite types of manga chapters, where it not only resolves a incident that is going on, but also sets up a lot more towards the future, which the final 2 pages of this chapter definitely set up a lot for what will be happening in the future of Navigatoria, right? Before we hop into, of course, this chapter number 22, we first need to talk about what happened in chapter 21 of the series. Of course, last time what ended up happening was Manabu, Madeleine, and Rikutan had gone into this abandoned school building after making it out of the cave. They ran into this random guy named Xavier in this school building who pretty much rescued them. And the chapter from there sort of revealed that Admiral Andre Centeno is still alive, until eventually moving into the fact that, oh, okay, look at all of this sort of stuff going on here in the school. The school's taken a month break, and we have now gone back and redone the cave sort of story stuff to where that whole section of the story is now done and over. And the whole thing about last chapter was Navi was not able to come to school, so this guy named Charlie is now part of the leader meeting in Navi's absence. And from there, we pretty much just had the end of the chapter with Manabu going up to, of course, Admiral Murrell, or Admiral Sasha Murrell, who is the, leader of the school and all of that sort of stuff, the principal, pretty much, and going and just asking him, hey, where is Navi? And as we start off this chapter, we see that Murrell gave up the information with not really any problems, as we see that Manabu is walking through the woods, and he eventually exits the woods into some very, waist-high grass. This grass is very, very tall the way it's portrayed, and we see it behind Manabu's jeans in a little bit, so it is pretty much half his height, which means that this grass is probably 3 feet. We don't know Manabu's particular height, but if he's just a regular guy I am, I'm not tall, I'm 5'7" or something like that. I am very short, all things considered, or at least short for a bunch of other people I know around me, I should say. I shouldn't say I'm short in general, because I'm definitely taller than a lot of other people out there for sure. But with that out of the way and covered, yet if Manabu is not even that tall, this grass is still very, very high to get up to almost his belt buckle and waistband and that sort of stuff, right? But we see that Manabu is walking through this grass up to a big sort of almost looking like a Victorian or ranch style house in a way. I know those are two completely different things, but imagine if you mashed them together, what you would get. And that is what Manabu is walking up to in this moment, as he's just whoa, this is Navi's house, isn't it? It's way different from all the dormitories that us other students live in, right? And he's and out here all the way in the mountains, does she really commute all the way from here? As he walks up to the house and walks up towards the door that he sees, the door suddenly creaks open, as we see some random Earth Army guy. We don't even get his name, but this Earth Army guy just opens up the door and says, hey, I've been informed by Admiral Murrell, welcome, come on in, right? He sort of just leaves the door open, Manabu walks in, closes it behind him, and he's oh, thank you very much, guy, and the guys are hey, Navi, Manabu Ho's here, right? And he's oh, does this guy live with Navi? We don't really get anything else besides for his little bit of an appearance, which I do like, because he sort of has this hair that sort of mirrors itself on each side of the head, but it's got these sort of white streaks in the front of it. It's a pretty cool and unique design, and also I do like the Earth Army uniform that he's wearing, but it's in a uniform that we've seen plenty of other people wear in the series so far, right? So it's nothing special by any means, right? As all of this happens, Navi suddenly runs down the stairs of this house and comes up and gives Manabu, like, a massive hug, like, sort of, like, almost jumping into him in a way, and just like, Manabu, right? And she's like, hey, I heard you were, okay, but you seem to be doing really, really good, right? And Manabu has a great excuse of, like, hey, I mean, it's already been a month after all, like, I would hope I'd be doing this good after a month, but he says, like, hey, what are all of your injuries, Navi? And she's like, oh yeah, I can finally walk normally again. I still can't run great distances though. She's like, yeah, but everything considered, I am doing all right. Right, and she's like, hey, come up to my room. We now cut to inside her room where we see that Manabu is sort of sitting there, and there's this little bit of like a circular table surrounded by like 4 like stools in a way. Like, they're sort of like box stools, like nothing special, just like boxes that have padding in them pretty much, and they're like no encasing furniture. What is an ottoman sort of thing? Yeah, there's like 3 ottomans sort of. Yeah, that's the word I'm trying to look for. I don't know why that was so hard there, right? But Navi just says, like, hey, you haven't eaten lunch yet, right? And Manabu's like, yeah, no, I haven't. And we see that she brings out a bunch of things. And really, there is a bunch of earth fruits, as Manabu says. Like, he's very excited to see all of these. And he's like, hey, where'd you get all of these, right? And Navi just says, like, Admiral Murrell gave them to her as a get-well-soon gift. Or no, I'm sorry, Admiral Andre Centeno gave them to her. As he just says, like, hey, I'm sorry about the helmet coming off. I wasn't supposed to come up bump and all that sort of stuff. He's pretty much apologizing and gave her a bunch of these fruits, right? And then at this point, Manabu finally says, like, hey, Navi, I've recognized you've had your school uniform on this entire time. Do you even wear it while you're at home? And Navi says, like, oh, no, I don't, but I'm wearing it right now just in case. I put on my uniform and get ready to go to school every single day. But I haven't been able to leave the house. And Manabu's like, hey, you're getting bullied by the kids in Class A, aren't you, right? He's like, hey, should I put in a formal complaint to the school? But Navi says, like, oh, no, I'm not being bullied, though. It's just friendly banter between all of us. Like, we really all do get along. Like, I swear it, we do. But Manabu's just like, hey, but you can't go to school right now, which means it's taking a toll on you and that it's very hard. And Navi's like, no, just not being able to go. It's just my problem. It's my own fault. And Manabu's like, no, Navi, I just hear what you're saying. You're just telling yourself that. Like, well, like, I can tell something's wrong with you. But at this point, Navi gets very frustrated at this and sort of like stands up and almost screams in a way. Like, I am the representative of the Dimithlians, so I'm not allowed to feel any hatred or anger towards the people of Earth. And Manabu is just like, Navi, like, come on. And he just thinks of all of this. His sweat sort of starts to roll down his face. And Navi just says, like, well, thank you for coming to check up on me, Manabu. I'll go back to school eventually, so. But Manabu's like, no, hey, I'm really thankful that I met you at this academy, Navi. If I hadn't met you, I think I would have always resorted to cheap tactics. And Manabu sort of just thinks a few little things like, hey, Navi, Class A is just jealous of you, and they did horrible things, but you had no one to rely on, so you always endured it on your own, didn't you? As Manabu just says out loud, like, hey, Navi, even if it's just to me, I want you to say what you really feel. And we see that Navi is just standing here, and she just starts to look at Manabu, and she's sort of like standing up proud and tall, but then her knees sort of move in together, and she sort of just bends over and starts to look towards the ground as she just says, hey, Manabu, arm. Let me bite your arm. As we see that Manabu, without any hesitation, holds out his arm in front of him for Navi to sort of grab on and bite to. And I have to comment on the panel that we see here, because we see Manabu sort of holding his arm out here, and for some reason, it just looks like the most buff arm ever. It's definitely, the perspective is a little bit off. Like we all know, the manga here, Waka Oshishi is a novice. I think this is his first series, all things considered, that I am really enjoying, so I'm not trying to go, but this little part of the art sort of makes it look like yeah, I don't think Manabu's arm is like that completely tough, but it is really cool to see just him get this determined. It's like, hey, it's fun. And to this, of course, Navi's like, hey, can I really, like, I won't hold back on it, you know? And Mama's like, hey, it's okay. And she just puts up her mouth to his arm and just chomps down on it. As she does this, I don't know if these are things that she is just thinking, or if they are things that are sort of mumbled that she is saying out loud while she is biting his arm and the blood is running all down it. As we just see, like, her thoughts, or like I said, I don't quite know what this is, but she just either thinks or says, like, hey, the people of Earth are detestable, I hate them, they're frustrating, detestable, awful, they should die, I will never forgive them. Really just getting all of her emotions out on Manabu in this moment. As Manabu just looks down at Navi, who is just crying in this instant, as we get a 2-page spread of where Navi's eyes are just crying, tears are streaming down her face, as the blood is also rolling down Manabu's arm from where Navi has sort of gripped on and is biting him. We see that at an indeterminate amount of time later, we see that Navi is helping Manabu sort of wrap up his arm in a bandage. And she's like, hey, I'm so sorry, Manabu. Like, that must have hurt. Like, I'm really sorry about all of this. And Manabu's like, hey, don't worry. It doesn't hurt. And he sort of, like, flinches his arm, like, no, on second thought, it actually hurts quite a lot. But he's like, hey, it's fine. I will bear this pain. As we cut to another point in the future, we don't really know how much time has passed, but what we do know is it's now dark outside of Navi's house, so it seems like there's definitely been a decent amount of time that Manabu has spent with Navi today. And as they're leaving, we see that Manabu has taken Navi's hand and has led her outside, as he's just like, hey Navi, good job. You made it out, didn't you? And Navi's like, yeah, I did. And as Manabu turns to sort of leave and walk away, he says like, hey, see you at school tomorrow, Navi, and sort of walks off back into the woods, as Navi just says, yeah, I'll see you there. As we now actually cut to the next day, where we see that Navi has now appeared back at school. We see one of her Class A compatriots has been like, oh, hey Navi, glad to see you back at school, you want to walk to class together? But Navi, in probably like the best move she could have made, says like, oh, no, I think I'm going to walk with someone else today. As we see that this person in her class, this female, is like, oh, what? Like, is very shocked about what she's just heard from Navi. As we see that Navi walks up to Charlie, who was the new leader of Class A that we met last time, so presumably will be a important character going forward, being that, like, he's the second, presumably most important character in Class A so far. As Navi just walks up like, hey, Charlie, let's go walk together. And Charlie's like, oh, I'm so glad to see you're back at school, Navi. I was so worried about you and all that stuff. And we see that Manabu is, of course, here at school, so he sort of sees this interaction and is very happy seeing that this has been going on. As the time of the day progresses, we now go inside of Class D's classroom as the bell rings, presumably in the morning, so we pretty much see that everybody's in the classroom, or at least everybody besides for Aiden, who is still on a leave. We will get to that in a very, very brief second. And we see that the teacher is there in the room. Of course, the teacher is Gray Goodman, who is the teacher of Class D here, right? Manabu sort of looks beside him to his desk, where, of course, Aiden sits on the left side of him, and just looks sort of like, damn it, like, Aiden still isn't here today either. Like, I wonder if they were actually able to reattach his arm, right? As, of course, in the most, like, manga fashion of, oh, hey, we need to talk about Aiden now, we see that Gray Goodman then just sort of pipes up and says, like, all right, guys, listen up, like, hey, it's about Aiden, who's been taking a break since last month. It has been decided that he will be expelled from the school. And everybody is like, wait, what? Aiden is getting expelled? As Manabu sort of looks over to the chair again, where I love the sort of image that we get here, where it's like the desk is empty, but in like the typical manga fashion, like there's the like black line explosion that's coming out from it, like enveloping, like, oh no, Aiden's not here and he's expelled, oh no. Of course, being that it is Aiden, we now get a shot of Rikotan's face, who looks very in despair over all of this that he has just learned, being that, yeah, Rikotan and Aiden have had a very strenuous relationship, but it is something that we definitely know that Rikotan wants to amend for what his country has done to Aiden's country. Of course, what Anon, or what the Dominos Empire did to Aiden's country of Anon, right? Grey Goodman is like, hey guys, like, I'm sad to say it so, but it sort of is what it is. As we suddenly do just a jump cut to the final page of the chapter, as we sort of get this revelation of, oh no, Aiden's being expelled. And as I said, like, the last 2 pages of this chapter are absolutely stacked, as we now cut inside the teacher meeting, where we see that the pretty much principal there, Admiral Murrell, is sitting there with all of the other 4 class teachers sitting around him. We see Grey Goodman and the other 3 teachers who may have names, but I don't remember. They probably have names. I just don't care to remember them at this point, right? And we see that their meeting is just about over, as Admiral Murrell just is like, hey guys, one more thing before this meeting ends today. I will be stepping down as the chairman of this school, right? And everybody's like, what in the world? Why are you doing this? And Murrell just says like, hey, as a representative, the new representative is already on their way here, so I ask you to all keep working hard from now on. I can sense some trouble brewing here in space. And that is where we end this chapter with the little manga plus tagline of, oh no, things are about to get worse. As we end this chapter of Navigatoria, like I said, chapter number 22 of the series. Fun chapter for sure, like definitely some interesting like foreshadowing and like some ideas that are getting brought up at the very end of this chapter with, are you kidding me, Aiden is being expelled? I don't think that he's going to be fully expelled. I think he is one of the most important characters in this series, so he will be brought back in some sort of way. Also, are they just expelling him because he can't come back to school right now? It's a little bit of like a nebulous idea that we don't quite know, but like, how is Manabu's story, how is Rikotan's story going to tie in back in if Aiden being that he's unable to come to school? Also, what trouble is brewing in space? Like, it's so interesting to understand and find out, like, what is going to be happening from here. It's a little bit of like a huh, but a fun huh. The other, like, the main focus of this chapter for, like, really the entire first, like, 18 pages or so is really just the conflict with Navi that gets resolved here, which I do honestly like how it's done, where Navi's, like, very chill about it, and she seems like she's okay, until Manabu sort of brings it out of her, like, hey, come on, like, we understand you're not okay, like, just tell me what's going on. And I do think the thing with Navi biting Manabu's arm is a little weird, but yeah, it's a little bit of a weird thing that we don't quite understand. We also don't get another good shot of, like, Manabu's forearm in this chapter to see if, like, he still has that bandage on it and if it's still bloodied. It's just not visible in any of the shots we get, so understandable from that angle. But yeah, Navi's back at school now, Aiden has been expelled, and Murrell is leaving the academy. Oh no, 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 what's going on here? Honestly, I have no predictions for what could be happening next. Like, I don't think Aiden's going to be actually expelled, but as far as that goes, I don't really know. But a really fun Greek chapter Navigatoria here. I really enjoyed it from beginning to end, and like, yeah, I thought this was just an awesome chapter through and through. But with that, I really don't have too much else to say about this chapter. Good, no other notes, but I think you guys have gotten my point across at this point. But yeah, thank you guys so very much for watching. If you do like this Navigatoria chapter review, I know that this video gets like no views because nobody cares about Navigatoria, but it is definitely a great series by the manga Waka Oshishi, which you guys should definitely be checking out. Like I said, the art's a little bit to be desired in some spots, but hey, it's this author's first work, and it's honestly one of my favorite things I'm reading week to week right now, so why should you be complaining? Go check out Navigatoria if you haven't already. And I've got a few other videos up on Navigatoria up on the channel. Right now, just chapters 20 and 21. I'm going to be trying to cover them all forward, and I know I'm a few chapters behind right now, but we are going to be working towards that, towards the future. I also cover other anime and manga related content on the channel. If you are a fan of like Kagurabachi, Oshinoko, World Trigger, or some other anime series like Bleach, Hell's Paradise, Jigoku Rock, Link Click, I do videos on all of those series whenever I'm actually good and caught up on them. Right now I'm just very much behind due to a hurricane that struck the southeastern United States here recently. By recently, I mean like 2 months ago, but it delayed me like a whole month, so I'm like trying to catch up while still having new stuff come out, which isn't always the best situation, but it's a situation that I'm dealing with, so it is what it is there. But thank you guys so very much for watching this video on, of course, Navigatoria, chapter number 22. And with that, I will catch you guys next time for chapter number 23 of Navigatoria. Or actually, if I'm not mistaken, we just have an extra chapter next time. But, yeah, either way, I'll catch you guys then. This will be Glowplasma 231 signing out.